Welcome to Real Estate Radio Power Investing, an informative and engaging hour discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate investing. Your host, Tom K. Wilson, provides you with insight and guidance from his years of experience as a successful real estate entrepreneur on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate, and much more. Now, here's your host for Real Estate Radio Power Investing, Tom K. Wilson.
Thanks for tuning in to our Real Estate Radio Power Investing program, where we empower you with the education to maximize your investing success. We're broadcasting from the Silicon Valley corporate headquarters of Wilson Investment Properties, a sponsor of Real Estate Radio Power Investing. I'm Tom K. Wilson, your host for this weekly radio program on multifamily and commercial investing and syndications. If you can't make the live show, you can catch our podcast on TomWilsonProperties.com. You can also go to baycom.club. That's BACOMM, Bay Area Commercial and Multifam.club, for information on free monthly education meetup venue on commercial and multifamily investing with world-class speakers. You can also go to TomWilsonProperties.com to sign up for our newsletter on economics and real estate. It's a every 2 week newsletter, and you get also, by signing up, you get access to quality cash flow turnkey residential and commercial syndications, which are normally only available to those that have a relationship with us and are signed up with us per SEC regulations, which is what we're regulated by for our commercial syndications. And of course, we always welcome your questions and requests. So we're broadcasting in February of 2019, and we are having on a next 28th of February 2019, if you happen to be hearing this before that date, we're having a Baycom Club event at the Trianon Theater in San Jose at 6 p.m., and it's going to be about how to defer capital gains so that you can sell assets and move them over into other assets, and without paying capital gains, and all the different techniques there are to do that. It's going to be a panel of guests and speakers, and one of those is Ruth Vanderstein. And Ruth is with us today, who is an expert both in 1031 and in monetized installment sale techniques. And we'd like to welcome Ruth to the program.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks for having me today.
Oh, it's great to have you, and look forward to having you on the panel, and a lot of interface in the future. This whole category of how to avoid capital gains is certainly something I think that is piquing now interest, because we have a lot of assets, both real estate and securities, that are building up. And I think as Dr. Doug Duncan, Chief Economist of Fannie Mae, who is a frequent guest speaker for us, he says all expansions end. So believe it or not, it doesn't always keep going up. In fact, it's a good thing, because if we don't have a correction once in a while, we have a big problem like we did 10 years ago. So we don't want that. Right. But people are realizing maybe it's time to pull some money off the table and move it over into something that's a little bit more secure. So, Ruth, give us a little bit about your background and what your business and expertise is today for our listeners.
Well, my background is 1031 exchanges. I ran exchange companies for 30 years, and when I was introduced to this strategy, and the IRS terms it as an installment sale coupled with a monetized loan, I was extremely excited about it, because not only can you use this for investment property, but you can use this for your primary residence. And there's not any other strategy out there that will allow you to defer the capital gains taxes outside of your exclusion, of course, if you're married, $500,000, or individual, $250,000. But as you know, in this market, there's a lot of people out there with a lot more equity in their properties than what the exclusion covers.
Indeed. So you're involved, have been for quite some time, in 1031 exchange companies, and but you also now, for, I think you told me before the program, about 3 years in monetized installment sales as well, so that your clients have some alternatives.
Right, and I started in exchanges back in the 80s, and it used to be where we had to educate taxpayers and escrow companies, the title companies, about the 1031 exchange, and people used to ask all the time, are you sure? Does the IRS recognize this? Well, we're getting the same response on this strategy where people are asking, how do you know that, the IRS is going to recognize this? And Section 453 of the IRS tax code has been around since 1913. And in 1980, the IRS said that you can take a loan out on your installment sale contract and still receive tax deferral. So this is not something new. This is something that's been around for quite a while, and the people, the billionaires, have been doing this for quite a while, but now we have two different dealers in the market that allow you to use this strategy with a sales price of $500,000.
So are you implying that sometimes wealthy people aren't cheating or using just loopholes, that they're actually using strategies that Congress wants them to use? What an amazing... We don't know if Congress wants them to use them, but they're there to use. What an amazing insight. So us smaller folks can take advantage of some of the same techniques that wealthy people do and help us be wealthier. Right?
Exactly.
So you've been in this general kind of business for quite some time. You've just discovered a technique that's been around for ages, but is not well known, and so you're using that as a backup. So to 1031 frequently. So tell me, when are times that you think are good to still use a 1031?
Well, the 1031 is a great strategy, and if you want to continue to hold rental properties and deal with the tenants, and you have no problem, you like owning real estate, you definitely want to do a 1031 exchange. But remember, when you do a 1031 exchange, you have 27 and a half years for residential property, 39 years for commercial for your depreciation schedule. So when you start exchanging, your depreciation schedule runs from the original property that you acquired. You can actually run out of depreciation schedule with the 1031 exchange.
That's not good, because then you can't shelter your income anymore.
Exactly. So we have several clients that are contacting us that have already owned their rental properties for 30 years. They have no more write-offs with these properties. Even if they did another exchange with it, unless they traded much higher in value, they will have no depreciation to write off whatsoever.
Once you have an accumulation of 27 and a half years or 39.
Exactly.
Yep.
So with this strategy, you can receive your cash, not pay the tax bill for 30 years, hold on to your money, wait till the market's ready, wait till you find the exact property you want to purchase. But when you do actually purchase it, you get your full 27 and a half years or 39 years. Mm-hmm. But the great strategy thing with this strategy is you don't even have to buy real estate. You could take your money and put it into your an annuity or life insurance, or just put it in your savings account. You don't have to buy real estate. You can start a new business if you want. The only thing that there's restrictions on, because these, what happens is you're selling your once you have a buyer for your property, then we have a capital asset dealer that steps in and buys the property from you on an installment contract.
Let's talk about get down to the weeds of the details after the first break. Right now, I'm trying to establish a little bit more, what your primary services to your clients and so forth. So you're still in the 1031 business. You've got monetized installment sale as an alternative. I think you told me you also have a credit repair business and financial, under financial tax strategies. You do the monetized installment sale.
Right. So do you want to cover the credit at all, or just we're only talking monetized, right?
Yeah, just letting people know what your what your skill set is and expertise and so forth. So that's So that's a broad spectrum of things, and you've been of different techniques, and you've been in this business for quite some time. So that's I think that's very helpful to clients for you to be able to offer a broader perspective. And when we get to our panel next week on BACOM, we will be getting into the details of how these different techniques, I think all of which have worked well for many people for a long time, and it'll help you, I think, to establish, help our clients and our listeners and our guests next week kind of establish which techniques maybe work the best for them. So we're going to take a break here, and we'll get into some of the details in a little bit, and we'll come back with Ruth van der Stein and talk about some details of what this monetized installment sale is all about. So stay with us on Real Estate Radio Power Investing. I'm Tom K. Wilson, your host. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Power Investing. Streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, visit TomWilsonProperties.com. That's TomWilsonProperties.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Power Investing, Tom K. Wilson.
Welcome back to our Real Estate Radio Power Investing program. We have with us today Ruth van der Stein, who is a expert and very experienced in deferring capital gains through various techniques, predominantly 1031 and also monetized installment sale. So Ruth, let's have you start to walk us through. Well, for those who aren't familiar, most real estate investors are to some degree. 1031, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on that because I think you're the main thing that you're bringing to the table for us today is monetized installment sale. But just so refresh the memory of those and maybe introduce to those the 1031 and the 45 and 6 month and so forth techniques. So can you just give a little overview of that?
Yeah. So on a 1031 exchange, it can only be used for investment property, not a primary residence. And basically, once you have a property that you want to sell, you have 45 days to identify a replacement property. You must acquire a property equal or greater to what you sold, and you have to replace the loan on the property that you sold equal or greater. And you have 180 days to close on the property that you identified. Now, there's a lot of rules when it comes to identification, so we're not going to cover all of those. But there are restrictions when you're doing a 1031 exchange. There's limitations when you want to buy from a relative. It's not like you can just buy your mom's home so you can help her out in doing a 1031 exchange. So
it's got to be arm's length, as they call. Yep.
Arm's length, that's right. Mm-hmm. So you have to be careful with all the different rules in with the 1031 exchange.
Yeah, and moms have really long arms, I've heard, so you got to be really careful.
Yes, they do.
Okay, and it turns out you can exchange in something which is lesser value or less loan. The catch is that you'd have to pay tax on the amount that you don't fulfill. So most people try to cover the whole thing.
Exactly.
Okay, and the key I think that you mentioned there, Ruth, is it's got to be from investment real estate to investment real estate. And that's fine. Exactly. I've done about 40 of those, and I've done probably 3 that are reverse. So you actually can buy the property you want to replace before you relinquish the one you want to get rid of. And why would you do that? Well, you do that when what you want to find is hard to find, and it might take more than 45 days to do it. The catch on that is you got to come up with the money out of your pocket to buy the one you're going to buy because you don't have the money from the relinquished property yet. So it gets it's a great technique. It's worked well for many transactions for many years, but it does have a lot of restrictions.
It does.
And some sweat and stress when as that 45-day approaches. We've had clients for Wilson Investment Properties who called us up a few days before the time was up, and they'd not found the right product yet, and they were in a panic and wanted to know if we could help them out, and we did in every case. But it's it can get sweaty.
Yes. So that is where the problem is, and they say that 60% of exchanges fail, especially in the market we just came out of, where there was multiple properties, cash offers, and it was very tough on people doing 1031 exchanges. Now it's not as bad, but it's still tough.
I see. That makes sense because, I'm going to replace it, so let me just go buy something. Well, we all know the stories of the multiple offers and how hard it is to buy something. And so what my experience is, and I'm sure yours is also, Ruth, and more so because you've dealt in it in large volume, I've just done it for myself, is that you certainly have a very tough time. A lot of people, I think, wind up overpaying for the replacement property because they're in a panic to save their capital gains, and they wind up overpaying. And sometimes they've been better off if they hadn't done an exchange and wait and get a better quality product. Would you agree with that?
I agree 100%. Several of my clients have told me if they knew what they were going to end up with, they would have never sold what they had. Wow.
Okay. That's a pretty heavy statement. Okay. So, unless there's something else you want to say about 1031, it's also called Starker and has other names, but 1031 is the tax code.
Well, and the beautiful thing about 1031 exchanges also is once the taxpayer passes away, the family will receive stepped-up basis, and we all know that Congress keeps trying to eliminate stepped-up basis, and they were pretty close this last year, but for right now, it's still in place. So if that happens and the taxpayer actually passes away, it's benefiting for their family.
Okay. In fact, I've got a transaction going on right now, which is relevant to that. So let's introduce the monetized installment sale. So why don't you paint the aerial picture of it first, Ruth, so they kind of just understand the general concept of what it is, and then we can get down in the weeds.
Okay. Well, it's simply, the IRS calls it installment sale coupled with a monetized loan. So basically what's happening is the taxpayer is able to defer the tax for 30 years. So if you sell a property in 2019, you would not have to pay your tax bill till 2049. So the strategy, and what we encourage people to do, but it's not a requirement, is if you take 25% of your capital gains tax bill and invest it in an annuity or wherever you want to put it, it's up to you. We're not even in control of that. But if you put 25% away, it's going to grow probably about 8 times more than your tax bill. So that way you're able to use the rest of the money that you would normally give to the IRS, and you can use it how you want to use it. You can either buy replacement property or different investments that you choose. And the growth on that annuity or whatever you put it in will take care of the tax bill, and your family doesn't have to worry about it in 30 years.
Okay. All right. And what kinds of assets does it work for?
It works for real estate. It works for businesses, antique cars, cryptocurrency, anything that actually has a capital gains tax bill, it will work for. I'm actually in the process of working with a client that we're doing a similar strategy to this with income. So the client's going to receive a $5 million of income under one contract, and we're going to be able to defer the tax on that income also.
Okay. And so I don't think you specifically state it, but just for clarity for our listeners, that means also publicly traded securities, right? So if you have a big 401k account of securities?
Okay, so this strategy that I'm talking about doesn't work for that, but we have other strategies that do.
Okay.
So we would just have to have someone contact me, and we would give them the best solution to help with that.
All right. All right. Does it? So you have to sell some asset, some real asset, basically, like a business or real estate, or okay. And it does not have to be investment real estate.
No, it can be your primary residence.
Okay, so that's pretty significant. Mm-hmm. All right. So let's identify a couple other things, and then on the next segment we'll get down into the details and weeds. Are there arm's length issues with this type of approach? What are any other restrictions?
No arm's length issues, because everything is stand on its own. So every step of this transaction sets separate. So it's where a taxpayer has an option to do the next step, so they can receive the money within 2 to 5 days from the close of escrow, tax-free for 30 years.
Okay. All right. So we're going to take another break right now that we've introduced Monetized Installment Sale, talked a little bit about how it compares with 1031, and then we'll let Ruth take us down the flow chart here of how a Monetized Installment Sale actually works. So stay with us here on Real Estate Radio Power Investing, and we'll have Ruth Vanderstein back with us in just a moment.
Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Power Investing. Streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, visit TomWilsonProperties.com. That's TomWilsonProperties.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Power Investing, Tom K. Wilson.
Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Power Investing with today Ruth Vanderstein talking about Monetized Installment Sale, a technique for deferring capital gains. So Ruth, all right. So I'll take a deep breath and sit back in her chair and go walk us through. Make this as succinct and simple as you can for us.
Okay. So basically, what happens is once the property is under contract with a buyer, the seller sells its asset to the qualified dealer by virtue of an installment sale contract. The installment contract provides that the payments to the seller is interest only for 30 years, with a balloon payment of the entire amount of the principal to be paid in the next 30 years. The dealer will then sell the asset to the buyer, and the buyer takes ownership of the asset and is finished with the end of the transaction. So the buyer has to know that there's going to be no delay in escrow and no liability to the buyer when the seller's doing this transaction.
So I presume, as in 1031 exchanges, there's a clause that goes in the contracts that says that the buyer is willing to cooperate with no cost.
Buyer's willing to cooperate, no additional cost or liability to the buyer.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Same type of thing. Okay. Mm-hmm. And the IRS allows the direct deeding, so the seller still deeds the property to their buyer, so that eliminates the additional transfer tax and recording fees.
So it goes directly to the buyer.
Directly to the buyer
from the seller.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So then, once you have the installment contract in place, then there's a loan transaction. The seller's then offered a loan from a private lender based on 95% of the value of that installment contract. The terms of the loan are identical to the installment contract. So the seller is going to pay the same amount of interest on that loan. It's going to be the same payment as the payment that the dealer is making to them for interest only on the installment contract. So they make it a wash. So there's not going to be any taxable event.
Now, so the money that comes from the sale of the property, where does that go? Because the seller can't touch it, right? Because once they touch it,
right,
then they've got a tax obligation.
Exactly. So what's happening is the title company is going to send the money to the dealer. Well, there's these three escrows that are set up. So basically, between the dealer and the lender, they set up these, we call them payment processing escrows. So there's going to be 3 escrows set up, one for the dealer, one for the seller, one for the lender. Mm-hmm. So what happens is when the transaction closes, the title company is going to send the money to that escrow processing, payment processor. They hold on to it. They're like a separate escrow account that holds on to it. So once the lender has given the money to the seller on their loan proceeds, because that's what's happening. The seller is swapping loan proceeds for sales proceeds, and those proceeds are not a taxable event. So the title company sends the money to this escrow that handles the processing for these payments. The escrow holds on to it until the lender has given the seller their 95% loan. Then, once all that's happened, the payment processor then gives the dealer the sales proceeds.
Now, why 95%? Is this 5% basically the cost of doing the deal?
Exactly. Exactly. The 5%, no lender gives 100% loan, so they chose 95%. And the reason they use 30 years is because they've done research, and history shows that if they make an investment over 30 years, they're going to earn anywhere from 9 to 11% interest on that investment. So the dealer takes the sales proceeds and he invests it for a 30-year term. So that way he may be earning 11% on the money, and he's paying out interest only at 5.7%, so he's making money there. Okay. There's two dealers in the market. There's one in Boise, Idaho, and the other one's in Utah. So both of them have come into the market to allow us smaller investors, and we're not have to be a billionaire to make this happen. And it's been happening. The one dealer's been in the market for 24 years now. Wow.
Okay. Any idea, rough idea of how many transactions have taken place? Have you heard that number?
Well, hundreds. It's this strategy has really taken off like wildfire. It took a little while to get people educated about it, and usually what happens is once they get educated and they like it, then they go to their CPA, and unfortunately CPAs are very quick to say, write your tax check. And, you know, I've had clients that are writing $300,000, $400,000 tax checks just because the CPA won't take the time to see what we're, trying to show them. So a lot of the times, I hate to say it, is you can outgrow your CPA. But we do have tax attorneys that also write, that are outside of the dealers, because the actual dealers are tax attorneys, but you have to have your own counsel when you're using this strategy. But we do have tax attorneys that we can refer you to, and they even offer opinion letters. So they'll charge you about $5,000 for an opinion letter, but I look at an opinion letter like an insurance policy. If the IRS were to challenge this transaction and you have an opinion letter from the IRS, from the attorney, the IRS cannot charge you interest and penalties. They can only charge you the gain. So we offer this to all of our clients. Very few actually get the opinion letter, but it's there as a comfort zone for you if you decide to.
Sound like pretty cheap insurance.
Yeah. But, it depends on the transaction. Like I said, the billionaires were doing this, and Shazam, the music app where you just push a button and it tells you what song is playing, they sold to Apple, and they used this tax strategy to defer the tax on that sale also.
I love your comment that you have to acknowledge that you might outgrow your CPA, and of course you could put in your tax attorney, your real estate broker, your financial advisor, everything. You have to, as you grow, if you're able to educate yourself and surround yourself with outstanding people, then you may outgrow some that were okay in your team before, and you they can still be your friend. You can still use them for certain things, but and you gotta, in your own best interest, you need to make sure you're always surrounding yourself with the best possible people at the time. Right?
That's right. And I've been on several listing appointments with real estate agents, and how they got in the list, how they got the appointment for the listing is because of this tax strategy. And once they find out that the agent knows how this works and saved them on their taxes, 99.9% of the time that agent actually gets the listing for the home, because the seller is very grateful to learn how to save that large tax bill. And 99% of the time, they already have an agent in mind, which happens to be their son's friend or somebody else. But the agent that talks to them about this tax strategy most likely will get the listing.
I think it might be also worthwhile for our listeners to know that installment sale concept in general has also been around for a long time, just in a direct sale, selling a house to someone else, and instead of taking the lump sum, they agree that the buyer then will pay you over a long period of time, and basically you've got a loan directly from the buyer to the seller, and that enables you to avoid capital gains. So this is taking that same concept, that same legal tax benefit law, and adding another dimension to it.
Right. Now, most people will ask me, well, what happens if the dealer doesn't make the payments? Well, the beautiful thing is in the promissory note and the loan agreement, it states that if the dealer doesn't make the payments, the lender cannot come after the seller. It cannot come after any other assets. They cannot issue a 1099-C, and they can't put anything negative on your credit report. So it's, you have your money in your pocket within 2 to 5 days from the closing of the sale of your property, closing escrow. And if the dealer doesn't make the payments, you're not responsible for that payment.
Okay, that's pretty significant. Do you know if, I'm sure with transactions, I'm guessing there's probably been not only hundreds, maybe a few thousand of these transactions over that long period of time. Do you have any information about how they've fared when they've been audited by the IRS?
Well, there is a memorandum from the IRS dated 2012 where that taxpayer was told that this is great for the taxpayer and great for the economy. So, of course, the memorandum is out there. The IRS has reviewed this. The IRS doesn't really want to put this into law because actually one of our dealers has been audited by the IRS, and they don't want it to get in tax court like the Starker case did for 1031 exchanges.
Yep.
They want it to be there for people to use, but not actually be placed into law. So even when they have been auditing this dealer, they're still not going anywhere with it. And the audit's been happening for 3 years. So everything has been blessed so far. No client that has used this has had any problems with the IRS. So it's a strategy that we just hope that most people will take advantage of.
Okay. Ruth, we're going to take a short break. Stay with us on Real Estate Radio Power Investing. I'm Tom K. Wilson, your host. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Power Investing. Streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, visit TomWilsonProperties.com. That's TomWilsonProperties.com. Again, your host for
Welcome
today's edition of Real Estate Radio Power Investing.
I'm Tom K. Wilson, your host, with the sponsor Wilson Investment Properties. And also we have on today Ruth Vanderstein, who is an expert in monetized installment sales. So Ruth, in the time we have left here in this program, what else would you like our listeners to know about the monetized installment sale, some of the uniquenesses that can be very beneficial?
Well, I'd like them to know that if you have properties and the value is not $500,000 or more, and they're investment properties, you can lump properties together. So what we do is we close them as 1031 exchange. You have 6 months, the 180-day time period, to get as many properties sold as you'd like, and then you can put them into one monetized installment sale. Then, if you have an investment property that you want to sell, you can take that money from that sale and pay off loans on your other investment properties so you can increase your income on those investments. And that one other thing I wanted to let you know, that if the seller dies before the 30 years is up on this installment contract, it doesn't trigger to shorten this. It still runs the full 30 years. The taxes don't become due until the 30-year time period. So that means that your heirs will take care of the tax bill. If there's no money left in your estate, then, as we like to say, there is no law against bad tax planning, and the IRS does not come after your heirs to actually recover this. It only comes to the estate.
Okay. If someone changes their mind within that 30-year period, can they do something different?
If the dealer and the seller agree, then yes, you can shorten the 30-year time period. But in every aspect that we look at, there's really no reason to do that. But you can definitely contact the dealer and see if they're willing to do that. If for some reason you've taken a capital loss somewhere and you show the dealer that loss and you want to offset it by the gain, then you can definitely break it if you want to do that.
Stay with us on Real Estate Radio Power Investing. I'm Tom K. Wilson, your host. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Power Investing. Streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, visit TomWilsonProperties.com. That's TomWilsonProperties.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Power Investing, Tom K. Wilson.
Thank you to all of our listeners here for tuning into our Real Estate Radio Power Investing program. And remember to go to TomWilsonProperties.com to sign up for our newsletter that will give you every other week updates and highlights on what's going on in the world of economics, especially as it relates to real estate, some deep dives on some important and interesting topics on real estate investing. And also by signing up, you will also get access to, by then becoming a part of Wilson Investment Properties client base, you'll get access to new syndications, which come out every few weeks, of commercial multifamily properties, which are around the country. So, Ruth, thank you again for being on the program. And remember to, every month is a BACOM, BACOMM.club event, where we have speakers that come from around the country to talk about topics of interest to real estate investors, such as in May we have back Dr. Doug Duncan, Chief Economist of Fannie Mae, give us a little crystal ball update on where things are and where he thinks they might be going, and many different speakers of that quality. So thank you again, Ruth,
you, Tom.
and for our listeners. And remember, the only thing that matters is what you do next.